My name is Chuck Banas. This is Albert Banas, my great-great-grandfather. He immigrated from Poland about 1879, came to Buffalo and set up several inns and saloons in the Broadway-Fillmore neighborhood. We think this one was on Smith Street, near Clinton. Not exactly sure, though. When Chris told me he wanted to buy and reopen a tavern on Peckham Street on the east side, I thought he was nuts. Many census tracts in and around that neighborhood have lost 80-90% of their population. The scale of the destruction is huge. It was the heart of the Polish community in the city and the region. And I know that many people feel the way I do about it, a sense of loss, a sense of heartache over what's happened. Chris Hawley is an old friend. We've known each other for probably, 17, 18 years now. This is his first foray into property ownership and rehab. And in such a distressed area, this could be a real boondoggle. He's a remarkably smart guy, but he's extremely optimistic and sometimes delusionally so. So I wanted to go for a walk through the neighborhood with Chris just to get a better look at the actual conditions there. Well, we're gonna go explore the neighborhood a little bit. Ready to go?
Yeah, let's experience your dad's Broadway Fillmore.
My grandfather's and great-great-grandfather's. This is pretty much on its last leg. It's not a good situation here. This one is probably going to be a goner. And this starts to speak to the condition of the neighborhood. I think this neighborhood may be beyond incremental repair. Only the most risk oblivious and delusional investors are going to invest here at this point.
My good friend Chuck Banas asked me to take a walk of the neighborhood where he has deep family roots, understands the neighborhood intimately, and thinks I'm making a big mistake with this project. Our first stop on our walk is just up the street, the boyhood home of Johnny Resnick of the Goo Goo Dolls.
You'd think this would have been landmarked, perhaps. Maybe it'll be around long enough to be landmarked at some point.
This is definitely a historical spot. You know, the Johnny Resnick's upbringing in Broadway Fillmore is a source of inspiration for so many of his songs. A young man sitting in an old man's bar waiting for his turn to die. Really uplifting.
Yeah, oh yeah. That's my favorite song of theirs, though.
Yeah,
it does capture something about the decline of this neighborhood.
Corpus Christi Church is one of two great Polish Catholic landmarks in the neighborhood. I can literally hear church bells, the real church bells, which are increasingly rare these days, within earshot of the tavern.
Now, if we get over to Lombard Street here, this is where a lot of my memories were created of this neighborhood. Yeah, this was one of my dad's favorite places to go. This was an old restaurant called the Polonia. Very typical of a lot of the little businesses surrounding the market here. They lived in the back. The restaurant was up front. And you'd come in and the old lady would greet you, and she would tell you what you were having for lunch or dinner. There was no menu. It was whatever they were deciding to serve that day. So this is one of my dad's favorite places to eat in the neighborhood. My dad was typical of the boomer generation in that he moved out. We lived out in the suburbs first in Blaisdell and then in Orchard Park. But he always came back to the market, spent a lot of time here, and loved the old neighborhood. And he introduced my brother and me to a lot of these little places around here, and this is one of his favorites. And I miss it.
How long do you think it's been closed?
Oh, a good 20 years now, maybe 25 years. It always looked like this with this shake shingle on it. I think it was designed to kind of look like an old Polish peasant house. I wonder if there's no mail. There's some mail inside though. And there were 6 or 7 restaurants along this stretch, and a few bars, taverns. This is a beautiful building. It's got great proximity to the market, and yet there's not enough interest to reinvest in this thing. I remember as a kid that all of these businesses were still open. Many of them were in rough shape, but every storefront was occupied here in this stretch between here and Broadway. And there were quite a few more buildings still in place as well. It's sad to see that there's not really a single viable business on this 2-block stretch here in what should be ostensibly the most valuable intersection on the east side.
I look at the landscape and I can only conclude that it just makes perfect sense for this to be the next phase of the city's redevelopment.
That's the optimistic view.
It is.
That may not be the realistic view. Yeah, well, this stretch here is hanging by a thread right now. And it either turns around within the next couple of years or it's going to collapse. There won't be much left. It's tough to see all of the vacant buildings, but this was cheek by jowl, business after business after business, all the way to downtown. So about 2 miles to downtown, something like that. It's hard to believe that most of that is gone, and this is one of the great retail streets of the nation in its heyday.
Broadway Fillmore in 1950 had a higher pedestrian traffic count than any other intersection in upstate New York. It was like a second downtown for Buffalo. It was anchored by the Broadway Market, which is perhaps the only anchor left of the old institutions that made this a lively place.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like all that long ago it was still quite viable. Like on a regular weekday, it was crowded. And in recent years, that's not the case. Right now, it's just languishing. And it's a little sad to see. Right now, this is the time to stop that decline. I think in 5 or 10 years, it might be gone if the city doesn't do something smart and significant here. Yeah, there's tough to see this street coming back. Jeez, I swear I remember it wasn't even that long ago. Every building on this block was still here. Just about every building. I just don't think we quite knew it at the time, but the center couldn't hold given the cultural trends and the policies we put in place after World War II. We set up a situation where there were a lot of suburban winners and a bunch of urban losers. These neighborhoods were redlined as early as the mid-30s, and between that and other policies, it almost guaranteed their decline. There still is a cultural memory of what this meant for the whole city, for the region, and that's a positive. I just don't think it's going to be enough.
You know, it angers me that an entire generation who developed all of these memories in this neighborhood simply turned their back on it move to the suburbs, and that's it. I've heard so many great memories of this neighborhood, but no plans to regenerate the neighborhood. And I am taking on this project as a form of protest against every individual decision to leave this neighborhood behind. I will not leave this neighborhood behind.
This is it's a big project. I'm glad you're doing it. I am cautiously pessimistic about it. But boy, this is a tough one. That's for sure.